Welcome into another episode of Kollectiv Knowledge. I'm your host, Shane Barrett. You can find me on Twitter at FFShaneB. And joining me tonight for our second episode of our Black History Month series, where we are honoring only Black content creators, is the one, the only, the amazing Tera Victoria, who is a contributor for Fantasy Pros, Fantasy Alarm, Awesemo.com, and Dynasty Vipers. Which I feel like that right there should just tell you how awesome she is and how good she is at what she does. So I'll throw her handle up in a minute. It's Tera time on Twitter. But Tera, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. No offense to my other guests in this series, but you may be the one that I was most excited about, just because you are, you're really doing a lot of good things in the fantasy community, and want to get to know about you and share that with the with my followers and subscribers to the collective. So,
Thank you.
Absolutely. So before we get into that, gotta pay the bills and whatnot, and that is for our ad read of Thrive Fantasy. So come prop up on Thrive Fantasy this football season. Thrive is a daily fantasy sports and esports app for player props. You choose 10 out of the 20 available player props to build your lineup. Each prop is assigned a fantasy value based on the over or the under and how likely that is to hit. And you hit the most props and rack up the most points to win a share of the prize pool. I just filled out my Super Bowl ticket for Thrive. I just did a $2 one, but they've got 5, 10, 25 different entries for however you like to bet. I like to go a little bit smaller. But it's a ton of fun, super easy to win, and they do have other sports as well, not just football. So as we transition into baseball and golf and even basketball, they have all those props for you to play. So use promo code FFShaneB when signing up, and they will match your deposit. And yeah, there you go. Come prop up and thrive this season on the App Store, Play Store, or www.thrivefantasy.com. All right, now that horrible ad read by me is done, let's jump into the questions, shall we, Tera?
Ready? Let's go.
Awesome. First question, always start with this, is when was your first fantasy football league?
So this one is funny. Fantasy baseball was actually the first fantasy thing that I ever did, which is weird to say because I don't follow baseball very closely now, but used to be very into it. Playing public leagues, public leagues, you always win. But fantasy football, my best guess is that it was, which I can actually go back and track through ESPN. My best guess is 10 years ago in 2013.
Nice.
And it was actually kind of cool. So it's one of two leagues. I'm not sure which one actually started first. But the first one, I think the first one was a league, this kind of group of girls. We kind of actually all met online.
Nice.
Yeah, and had nothing to do with football, just random teenage girl bonding stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And a few years later, we were like, hey, y'all guys want to start a fantasy football league? We're like, yeah. It was only like 8 of us or something. So we started that. Eventually, we added in like those who had boyfriends or husbands or brothers, in my case, that love fantasy football, joined in to kind of make it a little bit fuller. So yeah, I think that was my first long one. And then I also, one that kind of started around the same time period, was a home league with my brother and his friends. So I had 2 nice kind of one girl group and then one guy group.
Awesome. Okay, gotta ask, did you win the first year?
Oh God, no. It's so funny. So because you specifically were going to ask this question, I went and I looked in my emails and I found an actual like roster of 1 week, like back in 2013. And I legitimately have no memory of this. Apparently, I would not have ever guessed that I rostered Jay Cutler. I would not have ever thought that. Shocked. I was like, I don't remember this happening. I must have blocked it out. I remember other people on the team. I really legitimately just must have blocked Jay Cutler out of my existence. Like,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Okay, so my next question for you, is that league still going? Either one?
So the one with the girls ended about 2 years ago. You think we got a little bit all kind of, moved on and busy with lives. But the one with my brother and his friends actually is still going strong. We separated it into, we've got one Dynasty league, and then we kept that we, went into and said, wait, let's get going and let's actually go into Dynasty. And then we have one that we kept as redraft. So we've got those two that are, those two that are going, and it's really good. Really good. Lots of bonding, lots of razzing. We have definitely really good home leagues.
Awesome. I'm sure with your brother being in there, there's a lot of trash talk and razzing going on.
And it's funny because he's 4 years younger than me. Okay. So these were all of his like little friends growing up. Like one guy is one that I used to, like drive around and pick up from school and stuff. It's like, yeah. So yeah, it's pretty funny.
That's awesome. So what are the league settings for the redraft league? And then what are the league settings for the Dynasty league?
So the redraft league, I wanted to take that one to Superflex this year, just so we could get a little bit diverse in there. But we kept it pretty standard. 1 QB, 2 running backs, no tight end premium, defense, kicker, PPR. Yeah, I'm full PPR. You can convince me to play a half PPR. You can't convince me to play standard.
You and me both.
Yeah. But so yeah, full PPR, very basic. And then the Dynasty one, again, so the Dynasty one is a 10-team league. So so the way we went with that one is that it's, it's 1 QB, non-tight end premium, 2 wide receivers, but we've got 5 flex spots. So that makes it very spicy. Yeah.
I like that.
I feel like that's a really good way to compensate for like having a 10-team league, so that it's not kind of, especially in Dynasty, because you don't want these like ridiculous stacks. You still want, to be able to, struggle a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to be able to struggle. Like, am I going to start LaMichael P. Ryan, or am I starting Larry Roundtree this week? Because the rosters are deep enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, that 5 flexes, that definitely adds that component. I like that a lot. Okay, so this question isn't on the show sheet, and I should probably just add it because I ask it pretty much every time. Have you played tiered PPR?
I have not. No.
Oh, tiered PPR is my favorite. Shout out to my buddy Dom FFL on Twitter. He's actually the commissioner of my home league, Dynasty League. He introduced me to tiered PPR, and there's technically 2 types. So there's tiered PPR by distance, which is what I typically play, where it's like 0 to 4 yards is half a point, 5 to 9 is like 0.75, 10 to 19, etc. And as you go up, the point value goes up for your distance. And then there's also tiered by position. So like running back is half a point, wide receiver is a 1 point, and then tight end is like 1.5. So you can do either. I prefer the one by distance, though. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, I like that. That does sound good. I like it when you throw a little wrench into scoring, make it a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I don't know about you, but COVID and being quarantined, I've joined probably too many leagues, like a lot of people did.
Yeah,
I've cut back a little bit, but I still have the itch for a Dynasty startup. So here's my question for you. You've got room for one more league before you're capped out, but it can only be your favorite settings. What are those settings?
I would say that it would I would want, and I'm not picky on settings really, but I would want to go super flex, non-tight end premium, because I like to fade tight end, and that works out a lot better when it's not tight end premium. 2 wide receivers, no, 3 wide receivers and 3 flex spots. Again, I like a lot of
deep rosters.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you play any IDP?
I do. Yeah. I will say, people, I'm not the best person in the world to ask your IDP questions as an expert, but I do enjoy playing IDP. I actually did one best ball league this year, which actually, my favorite thing to draft is definitely IDP, because I enjoy the more complex that it gets, trying to figure out when to jump in and at what point you're getting your defensive player, which position you're going with, how are you stacking, how are you looking at the scoring settings and, sacks versus tackles and whatnot, trying to figure out those things. So yeah, I actually played in one triple flex IDP league. Yeah, those triple flex leagues.
Was that with the Angry Sports Couple?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They're crazy. I love them so
It was
much.
so much fun. And maybe it was fun because I did have like 3 very viable starting quarterbacks, so that made it a little bit more
Yeah.
interesting. But yeah, that was fun.
Was that a redraft one for charity this year?
No, best ball.
Okay, it was best ball. Gotcha. I did one with them this year that was redraft for charity. And I somehow lucked out and drafted, I think, Davis Mills and Mac Jones.
Nice. I had Mac Jones too. That was a nice little sneaky one that if you got him in there in a triple flex, that was really good.
Yeah, so that helped out a lot because then I basically had those two and then Daniel Jones. But even in that format, like they were scoring enough to where I ended up making the playoffs. So
yeah.
But yeah, that format is insane.
Yeah. Very fun draft. It took forever, but very fun.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Next question. When did you start making content for fantasy football?
Last year. Last year, I actually joined. It started with the Dynasty Vipers. I joined the Dynasty Vipers at the beginning of last year. Again, in the off season, our main thing that we were doing was the Behind the Grind series, interviewing, big analysts in the league. And after a couple of months after doing that, I started to get a little bit more confident, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make individual content. So I started, I dove right in, just started creating all kinds of short videos, and it just kind of took off from there.
Awesome. So what made you start?
So, it's funny. My start is 100% attributed to the Dynasty Vipers and Matt Donnelly
Love that guy.
and Cal and Major
mustache.
and Bob. And yeah, it was really funny. I actually met them on Clubhouse. We were actually Major hosts a lot of Clubhouse rooms, and we were talking, just casually talking football in the off season. And then one day, Matt randomly asked me, "Hey, would you want to consider maybe joining the Dynasty Vipers?" And usually I hesitated, but I went and I looked at the YouTube channel, and I was kind of like, "This is." I liked it. Very good concept, very compelling. I liked them. And I probably would not have actually started making my own, content and whatnot if it really wasn't for them and them being such a supportive team, and just kind of helped push me forward in terms of making individual content. And, the second that I started, doing stuff, I started off with short player videos. My goal was like, they're going to be like a minute long, but I'm kind of long-winded sometimes. So some got upwards of like over 3 minutes.
You and me both.
Yeah. But it just it felt right. And so I just kept pushing forward, daily videos there for a while. And, you kind of know that moment where everything clicks and it just really makes sense. And you feel like you're doing something that you just need to continue pushing forward with as much as possible. That was it for me. So yeah, just, past off season, it was kind of crazy. I've been a long time player, a long time consumer. But I wasn't on Twitter at all. So I really wasn't a part of that fantasy football community. I didn't know it existed. Wow. I was actually did most of my fantasy football discussions on Reddit anonymously. I will not tell my username or anything, but yeah, once I kind of discovered the fantasy football community on Twitter and everything, it was just like a whole new world opened up to me. And,
probably a lot nicer too.
Yeah.
Like sometimes Twitter can be a cesspool, but then like you got to go probably like 300 feet deeper, find the bottom of someone's shoe, and that's Reddit.
Yeah.
So if you can make it on Reddit Reddit fantasy football, you can definitely make it.
I will say the Dynasty ones, the Dynasty stub is a lot more dedicated and kind of like, because I guess like the more niche you get, the more fantasy football people want to like bond. The ID people want to be with the IDP people and support each other, So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That, like, seriously, that just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you remember what your very first piece of content was?
Oh, I meant to look this up. So, the first series that I did was 30 players in 30 days, where I was making those
Okay.
short videos on
I think I remember that actually.
individual player profiles for Dynasty. And who was my first one? I should have looked this up. It might have been Keelan Cole, because it was
Wow.
Dynasty. So you're going
Yeah.
like you're wanting to, and I kind of wanted to make it varied, to kind of see what hit and what
Yeah.
didn't. So I did some guys that were very like very lower profile, like true
Yeah.
finds, and then some things I was like hey I could go like controversial, like a lot of people believing that the future wasn't heading in a very positive direction for somebody like Lamar Jackson, and doubting him a
Yeah.
little bit from a passing perspective and whatnot. So occasionally hitting on the big guys, but there were a lot of deeper guys in there. So that was I think that was my first one right there.
Awesome. I'm scared to ask this question because I'm a known truther for this person, but I kind of want to hear your thoughts on him. What do you think of Baker Mayfield?
So he was it's funny, I remember all these guys. He was one of my players in my in my 30 player series. And I was defending Baker. I was. Because I got to admit, throughout college, I was not a fan. When he entered the NFL, I was not a fan. But I think I felt like people were a little bit harder on him
Yeah.
than necessary. He's a okay quarterback. I don't think that
I, no,
I don't
you're
think
not
it's getting
so.
much better, but
Yeah. I'll give my thoughts real quick. I think he's an NFL starting quarterback with the potential to be really good, but I don't ever think, unfortunately for me, that he'll ever be great or elite.
yeah,
He'll have some greater elite games, but he's never going to put it together consistently, I don't think. But I think he's a fine NFL starting quarterback.
yeah.
And they've got enough pieces around him that I think he can take them to the Super Bowl. Which I know a lot of people probably think I'm crazy, but whatever.
Well, it's a much improved team, and I feel like where people have to give him like a little bit of a break is that you got to consider the way that he entered the NFL and the things that he had to go through those first few years, having all of those coaching switches and very bad
First
coaching
4 years in
situations. I mean,
first 4 years in the league, I think he had 4 different offensive
yeah,
coordinators,
like that's
um,
insane.
and 3 different head coaches. I'm like, how I don't get it.
Yeah,
And then this year, he was bad, but he was hurt from week 2
yeah.
on.
hmm And I think kind of like I do defend Odell a lot too, who was also one of those 30 players. I guess I hit on Cleveland a lot, but that was just a bad match between the two of
Yeah.
them.
No,
It was
totally.
never gonna work. It was never going to work with Odell in that offensive system. I don't blame Baker. It was not a match made in heaven between everyone
Yeah.
there.
Well, I don't know if you saw it, and we've strayed severely off the path, but we'll come back in a minute. But the video that Odell's dad made, and then comments that he
Yeah.
made to Von Miller, like, don't come to Cleveland. Like, I saw someone else put it out there. Like, Cleveland's offense is a timing offense. If you're not in the right spot at the right time, you can look wide open, but it's because you're not in the right spot. And so that's where I feel like some of the plays from the video specifically came into play, is because Odell wasn't in the spot he was supposed to be at the time he was supposed to be. So he looks wide open, but Baker's not looking there because
Yeah.
that's not what the play called for.
Yeah. And that just was, within that offense, it just didn't work. Now it can work somewhere else
Like
where they
LA.
allow for that leeway,
Yeah.
and you have a quarterback that can find you wherever you are.
Yeah.
Stafford can do that. It just
Yeah.
didn't work with Baker.
No, completely agree. Shout out to Dynasty Vipers. They're saying more Tera, less Shane. I agree. So let's talk more about you. Okay. What is your favorite thing about the fantasy football community?
So my favorite, so I for 10 years, I worked in, I guess, tell my age. I worked in corporate America. And the thing about that is that literally 99% of people don't want to help you. They don't want
Yeah.
to, mentor, help you better, help you progress upwards, extremely competitive. It's not about pushing everyone forward as a whole. And that's what's so different about the fantasy football community. It's kind of crazy how you've got guys and girls with hundreds of thousands of followers and 1 million followers, and they go out of their way to join smaller shows. They go out of their way to help. You can DM them and they'll speak to you and help you and have relationships, and just it's crazy how different this community is in terms of there not being a whole bunch of like paranoia. Everyone wants to help the entire community push forward. You want to see people succeed. So that's kind of the thing that I love about it. I talk about the Vipers and the entire team there. The first thing that I felt, there's actually a contest going on with people that are 1,000 or less followers. You're voting, and and it's fun. And the fun thing about that is that, and we're doing that right now. But shout out for Major, vote for Major. But I did that last year, and the fun thing is that I knew that I could have my team have my back, and they support me. That it's crazy just how incredibly supportive everyone is. Very different.
I remember that you were in that last year. That is crazy how much you've grown in a year, just your following. So I'm proud of you for that, because I remember I feel like our first stream together might have been for the Vipers Christmas kind of awards show, maybe.
Oh yeah. That was it the
it was around
mock draft?
I think so. It was around that time. Before. And just to see how much you've grown since then is awesome. And yes, shout out to Major. I think he's going against J-Wall. Is that right?
Oh, I don't know who it is right now.
I can't remember either, but both guys are great follows. Follow J-Wall, follow Major, vote for whoever you feel like. And they both know, like, they're both rising stars. So, okay. All right. A little less about fantasy football, a little bit more about you now. Tell us, thank you. That has to be Cal or Matt, because we're in a group chat together and they always like to make fun of me for having 3 favorite teams. Which one of them is yours? Go Packers.
Nice.
So tell us a little bit about yourself outside of fantasy football. Where you're from, where you live, you married, you got kids, what's your day job, etc.
So I am from, the biggest thing that you can associate me with is, let me make sure I always point like the wrong way. Is Clemson. I get camera confused. I'm like,
Yeah, no, I still do.
But yeah, I'm originally, I live in Houston right now. I've been here over 10 years, but I'm originally from South Carolina, Anderson, South Carolina, about 20 minutes outside of Clemson. So I was born and raised there, grew up there. I went to Clemson. So, I mean, that's like the biggest thing about my identity is probably way too closely tied with Clemson.
It's okay.
I'm like the crazy person. Like when I applied to schools, I only applied to Clemson. It was like, you sure that's a good idea? I was like, no, it's fine. I'm getting in. It's all good. I'm not worried. But yeah. I'm from South Carolina. Been here about 10 years in Houston. Big thing about me, I'm a mom of 2. It does 2 boys, 5. He just turned, actually, they both just had birthdays. My 5-year-old in January and my now 2-year-old last week.
Congrats.
Yeah.
I also have a 2-year-old. I don't know how that's going for you, but I felt that sigh very personally.
Yes. Yeah. I'm tired. My 2-year-old's at the phase where like, my 5-year-old sleeps by himself. He's all good. The 2-year-old wakes up, climbs out of bed, comes downstairs. I'm like, you just like walks downstairs, jumps into bed every single night. I'm just like, man, I just want to sleep one night. Can I not get like, more than 3 hours at a time for like the past 5 years or so? Parenthood. But yeah, it's if you watch any of, especially our Dynasty Viper shows, I try to make sure, particularly when I'm doing guest spots, I try to be very respectful and make sure that my kids are not going to like bust in and make themselves start up the show. But apparently for the Vipers, that's, I feel so at home there. Then like, these kids might show up at some point during the show. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, but but yeah, it's really, it's funny. I love working in fantasy football so much, clearly, because my life is kind of chaotic with so I'm a small business owner, so I've got that going on. Mom, the fantasy football content, which I, during the season, it got to where, because I really genuinely enjoy it. It doesn't feel like work. So I want to, I work for a lot of companies, but I like it because I like, the diversified experience, getting to do a lot of different content. In season, I put out, a minimum of a piece of content a day, often more than that. So makes things kind of chaotic when you're trying to get all that done, raise kids, run business and what. But yeah, it's fun. Tired, but it's fun.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. That's why the show's at 9:30 Eastern time, because my kids are asleep.
Nice. That's why I wish I was on the Eastern. That's why I get hindered so much by being on Central time, because I always am 1 hour back, and I'm like, man, 9 o'clock is 9 Eastern is the perfect time period if I was there.
Yeah, 100%. So now so actually I want to follow up on this one thing for you. What's your small business? Plug it away.
It's dry cleaning. It's local.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if you're in Houston, then it could be useful for you.
Yeah. Very cool. I don't know if you could use this service, but my wife just found it. It's basically like an app or whatever, and you like do other people's laundry. So I don't know if you could like partner with that. And have other people do dry cleaning. Just a random thought from Shane.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you've got ADHD. All right. So what are your hobbies outside of fantasy football?
So I will say that the combination of COVID, working in kids and football, made me basically have no hobbies for like the past year. I would like to get back to hobbies. That's the goal this off season. We'll see. Yeah. But I am a certified personal trainer, so fitness is my big hobby when I'm not crazy and running around. But yeah, I am very, very passionate about particularly women in fitness and like healthy, non-restrictive fitness journeys and whatnot. So yeah, working out, fitness, definitely a big hobby of mine.
Awesome. Tera, you were like seriously just getting cooler and cooler as we talk.
Thank you.
Okay, well that wraps up the long form questions. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Yes. I'll try to rapid fire. We'll see.
Okay, it's really more of rapid fire because A, I'll ask a follow-up question if I like want to, and B, sometimes you got to think about it. So, all right, favorite NFL team?
Green Bay.
Beautiful. Go Pack, go.
Yes.
Favorite sport that's not football?
Right now, golf.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Favorite food?
Sushi.
Mine too. Favorite sports movie?
Remember the Titans. I can quote the whole movie. Obsessed with it.
Beautiful choice. I watched that a few weeks ago. It's one of those that you got to watch like at least once a quarter, maybe.
Yeah.
If not more frequently. Okay. Favorite non-sports movie?
Mean Girls. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Favorite band?
So I've never really had a favorite band. Very random. I've never been able to answer that question ever. But right now I am really into Doja Cat. So that's my favorite right now.
Awesome. That's a perfectly acceptable answer. You can give me favorite right now. There's no parameters on the question. I just need a favorite band.
Yes.
Okay. Favorite adult beverage?
I like a very nice tequila.
Oh, I knew liked you. Tara, we could hang out.
We should. I will make it back to South Carolina one day.
Beautiful. Favorite TV show?
Schitt's Creek.
Oh, good selection.
Yeah.
Okay. Last two questions are technically two-parters. I need right now and all time.
Okay.
So favorite defensive player right now and all time.
So all time is Charles Woodson.
Beautiful. Excellent choice.
Right now, I guess my answer is a little biased. Jair Alexander right now.
Awesome. You like the cornerbacks?
I do. Yeah.
Jair is so good, and Charles Woodson was phenomenal.
So talented.
Yeah. Okay. Same premise, but favorite offensive player now.
I mean, so obviously Brett Favre, although I got a lot of cognitive dissonance going on with that one as we've moved forward over time with him.
Yeah.
But yeah. But other than that, I would go with Donald Driver. And then right now, going away from Green Bay and over to Clemson, DeAndre Hopkins.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, so I have one follow-up question. It's not on the show sheet. Why Green Bay? How did you become a Green Bay fan?
Oh yeah, it's a story in itself.
I think I've actually heard this, but I want it on the show.
Yeah, so my family, we love to gamble. And so as kids, like we would have, or like when I was a kid, we would have like Super Bowl parties, and they would do all kinds of little betting games and stuff and squares. And I obviously didn't understand what I was doing, but they would let the kids do it. And back in, I believe it was 97. And I don't know why I never actually verified that was the actual year of that Super Bowl in particular. But Green Bay won me some money, even though they did not win. The Broncos won.
Nice.
But yeah, I was like, hey, this team's great. I like Brett Favre. I'm sticking with them. Because back then, because I never really, with South Carolina, it's always weird with football. It's really easy. You have a very specific college team that you support there.
Yep.
But it's all over the board with the NFL, because the Panthers weren't my childhood team. They weren't in existence when I was really young. So yeah, most of my family, we've got like Pittsburgh, Dallas, Tennessee, all kinds of all over the board. And I was the one Green Bay fan that they made fun of constantly. And I stayed loyal through that. Through that, literally winning like $25.
Nice.
Yeah.
I actually know exactly what you're talking about with the like the pro team choice, and that's probably why I have three favorite teams. But being from Alabama, it's either Auburn or Alabama. Yeah. And then the state is like spread out, like you said, like there's Saints fans, there's Falcons fans, there's Cowboys fans because they're everywhere. Tennessee fans because it's only like a 3-hour drive to Nashville. Like it's literally like everywhere. It's maybe a little more geocentric to the southern teams.
Yeah.
But there's fans of everybody in Alabama because you basically have two teams and it's Alabama or Auburn.
Yeah.
So I totally know what you mean when you're talking about with South Carolina. It's either Clemson or Carolina.
College football trumps all. So
yes. Which is funny now that I live here. I went from one state to the other with basically two teams. So, Tara, this was a ton of fun. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on and celebrating Black History Month with me. To wrap up the show, I basically just this is your minute. Tell us where people can find you, what you're working on, and anything else that you want to plug.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, best place to find me on Twitter. That's where I funnel literally everything. The goal is for me to have a website by next season where I can put content, but don't hold me to that. So follow me on Twitter. Off season right now, big thing. We've got the Dynasty Vipers. We are starting the Behind the Grind series. So we do weekly shows. We'll be talking with different analysts. I'm looking forward to the draft coming up. So look forward to some draft content as well. And obviously you can catch me, things that still go on in the off season. You can still catch me with some fantasy pro stuff, but really the off season, looking forward to it. Looking forward to diving into these prospects, the draft, and then I'll be getting in Dynasty, and but redraft will come soon, very soon.
Definitely. Are you on TikTok?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
So vast majority of I actually started my own TikTok with the same username. It's Tera Time.
Okay.
Probably a couple of weeks ago. And then I also do actually a ton of TikToks for the Fantasy Pros account. So that's a really good place to find me as well. The Fantasy Pros TikTok, but my own TikTok that I started recently as well.
Okay, cool. I thought I'd seen a couple of videos that you posted on Twitter from TikTok, so wanted to make sure we shouted that out so we can help you grow there as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Kollectiv Knowledge. Thank you again for joining us, Tera, and make sure you follow me on Twitter at FFShaneB, the Kollectiv at FF_Kollectiv. That is KOLLECTIV. If you like the show, please do like and subscribe on YouTube. We're inching closer and closer to 100, so we can change our URL. So smash that like button, smash that subscribe button for me. And we'll see you guys next week. Cheers.